Mark Lever, now on stage. Talk about digital creativity is the competitive edge.
Get my presentation in a second.
Still not there.
What's that? So there's some context. Parameters, my company, as is the modern way. I work for many people, mainly for myself. The context of today, I work for the British government as an advisor around digital media, working with international businesses looking to invest into the UK. So I've done a lot of, as Bjorn's done, looking at startup ecosystems and looking at the companies coming out of there. So creativity meets technology for competitive advantage. Obviously, the three most important words I left off my slide by mistake. To set some context, why are we interested in this? As Bjorn said, let's step back. I hope you can see this. This is the UK advertising market. And it's a diagram of percentage spend within the UK advertising market. These are really small, but it gives you an idea. Red is press and print. Brown is the internet. This is the last 20 years. The last 10 years, the UK advertising market's been worth about £17 billion, so about 20 billion euros. Hasn't changed much, gone down a bit with recession, up a bit with big sporting events. The big change is clearly this. And this is the thing that we're all interested in, I think. Because this triangle here is new products, new services, entirely new business models driven by new technologies, driven by digital technologies. This line, this is 2011, this line is now digital advertising in the UK is £5.4 billion a year. So it's a big triangle to aim at. And this is happening across all sorts of different industries as well. We could probably find the same graph for music, for publishing. It's always useful to have a report to say the blindingly obvious and quantify it, but this is one that got a lot of attention in the UK. Digital is the heart of the sector's future. Yeah, go figure. So we're all about, in this room, I think, exploration, innovation, ideas. So I thought a start point would be another client of mine, which is the Pervasive Media Studio in Bristol in the UK. Founded in 2006, worked with about 300 businesses, made about 50 plus seed investments. It's very, very much about early stage ideas and exploring different opportunities. It's about open innovation, collaborative innovation, iterating fast, failing fast. It has a model that it uses, which it calls a sandbox. Sandbox is a very intensive process underneath a big question. The big question in this case was, what's the future of digital books and print? What's the future of this industry? We made 6 investments of £50,000 in digital physical hybrids, RFID tags, location awareness, what was the other one? Hyperlocal media. And it's about experimentation. And I like this quote from Alvin Toffler in the 1970s. It's about creating competing images of possible futures. So, how do we know what to do? Well, let's experiment. Let's try it out. It's very, very early stage. Well, the thing that we also do, because it's all about open innovation, is gather the learning. And I might tweet a link to this thing, but this is the thing that we sent out then to the publishing industry saying, okay, so we worked on this for 6 months very intensively as a collaborative group. Here are the things that we learned. Here are the things that you need to take into account for the future of your business. And I think that this is what it's about. We've got to learn quickly and discard what's not useful. And that's what the Sandbox does, and that's what the Pervasive Media Studio does. But it's not about research for research's sake. We're only in this to create new commercial potential. You want one of these. One of these solves a similar problem to the one that Linda was talking about earlier. This is an alpha sphere made by a company called New Design. They came to us, and the guy had, it was a sandbox and interface design, which is what we're interested in. These things have depth. And he came with a polystyrene cup, some wires, and a picture of him at a gig saying, I don't want to look at a man behind a laptop. So he invented one of these 18 months ago. He now has distribution in Europe, USA, China, Japan, office in Hong Kong, production line in Shenzhen. Now what I'm trying to show is it's about sparking ideas, but it's about a very, very creative approach and a creative execution using digital technologies and the ability to go international very, very quickly. So, as I say, for the UK government, I travel around a lot And there are lots of places who are trying to create this startup ecosystem that Bjorn's talking about. This is the last few months. Oasis 500 in Jordan, Yetizen in San Francisco. That's not JFDI in Singapore, that's just their logo, because that would be weird if that was actually the place. This is Garage 48 in Tallinn. These are nowhere near as early experimental as the Pervasive Media Studio is, but these are places where you're bringing together digital businesses, trying to get them to fire off each other, trying to get them to grow. Why do these places exist? Because companies like you can grow very quickly. You don't need much capital to start. You don't need to build a factory. You can access a market very quickly. And it's very hard for the incumbents to lock you out of the market. We've just seen the advertising market's totally changed. Suddenly you have a whole load of data analysis, ad tech. The incumbents can't keep you out. And you can access people's personal technologies. So you have access to a market. And you can internationalize very, very quickly. Internationalization is a design issue as much as a logistics issue. There's some localization, there's some currency stuff, but I was with a startup in San Francisco not long ago. On their whiteboard was 2 company launches every 2 weeks for the next 3 months. So it's possible. We are digital after all. And on the macroeconomic trend, and I think we'll probably talk about this, various of these have government support. Because some countries, Jordan being one, I would imagine Portugal being another, they realize that we have an employment problem, and if you can't create enough jobs, then you have to create the mechanism for people to create their own jobs. So you'll find that there are many incubation spaces with very strong government support to create this kind of economic restructuring opportunity. So we're going to talk about creative execution a little bit. Kiosk is a company that came out of Helsinki. They have a product which is a kind of e-commerce platform. It's about native advertising, but it's a very, very simple execution. You don't think about the technology, you think about them giving you relevant information. In the last 12 months, they've had investment from Rovio. They've gone from Helsinki to London to New York to LA to Singapore. So they've moved very, very quickly, not because they're technology, but because it's a very, very good creative execution. And this is where they bring the creative element to their growth. If anybody's from Guimarães, they may recognize this. This is the Tural Square in the center of Guimarães. And I want to make a point about appropriate technology. If you look on Google Earth or Bing, you won't see this image because they restructured the square. There used to be a fountain here. I was doing a project there which was about privacy, surveillance, open data. We made this with a balloon, a long piece of string, a camera, which we hacked, so we bought it on eBay. And you can just see the piece of string here and the people holding the other end. Here's another balloon and some people holding it. So the point is that Guimarães now has an incredible open source library of fantastic pictures of the city, which didn't exist before. So it's about creative execution. The technology was irrelevant, and here the technology is very, very Heath Robinson. So I think what we need to think about, we can get very, very caught up in tech. We need to think about what's the right thing to do, and then we hide the tech. It's about the creative execution more than anything else. Nobody cares that we made it with a balloon. They can see the top of their city. We were talking to this, here's an example of how not to do it. We were talking to this lady about the Internet of Things and smart cities. She was not remotely interested in the Internet of Things and smart cities. And the reason she wasn't interested, because we were talking about technology. We hadn't talked about what the implications were for her, what the relevance was. We hadn't brought the creative to bear in order that she understood it. We were talking tech, and that's a problem around smart cities and future cities at the moment. But she was a lovely lady in a lovely bar. So let's extend that point. This is a lift from a guy called Jesse Schell, who's an American game designer. This is his four elements for success of game design. I think that this is much wider. I think if you change the word story to motivation or emotion, you actually have a framework by which a lot of products can be made. And I think the interesting thing for me is that UX, aesthetics, and motivation are actually all creative disciplines. And in some ways, if you get this creative right, then the tech, whilst ultimately fundamental, is not actually important to your consumer. So I think that what we've seen with a lot of the successful startups is that the tech's slightly hidden. That what they've thought about is what's the user experience. And part of the previous panel was about that as well. We are explorers. Alfonso from Twizy, and I saw that they presented yesterday, said this when I was in London with him last week. If we get the creative execution right and we have the digital technology, we have access to markets, because we have access to personal technologies, we are all explorers. We can be international very quickly. And I'm slightly embarrassed to show this slide, given that we had an astronaut on stage earlier. But it's a good example to me. So I also invest in Kickstarters. For £199, I've invested in the future of affordable space exploration. I haven't invested because it's fiendishly clever technology, which is. I've invested because of the creative execution, which means that I have my own pocket spacecraft, which I can adapt and I can track, and it will be on the moon in 2016. There's my contacts somewhere. Thank you very much.